Thank you, President Philbrick, senators, and guests. In December, I began a conversation with this body about land acknowledgement, which continues today with our guest speakers, Mr. Baker and Mr. Coumans. They are Lenape, members of the tribe of Native Americans whose territory spread across Pennsylvania, New Jersey, southern New York, and the western edge of Connecticut. We work on land that is part of the Lenape homelands, taken from them by European colonizers under violent threat. The majority of their people were forcibly resettled to Oklahoma as part of the Immoral Indian Removal Act. Mr. Baker and Coumans are part of Lenape Center, whose mission is to continue Lenape Hoking, the Lenape homeland through community, culture, and the arts. Since 2008, Lenape Center, based in Manhattan and led by Lenape elders, has created programs, exhibitions, workshops, performances, symposia, land acknowledgement, and ceremonies to continue their Lenape presence, pushing back against Lenape erasure and seeding the ground with Lenape consciousness for the next generations. They speak to us today about living land acknowledgement. Gentlemen, welcome, and Wanishi.
How are you all today? Good? All right. So land acknowledgement. Land acknowledgement is a movement that is global. It began in Australia, New Zealand, Canada. Land acknowledgement has reached the East Coast and is a movement that is very well aligned with our mission at Lenape Center. Our mission is continuing the homeland through Lenape arts, culture, community, having a presence in the homeland. And why is that so important? It's important because Lenape Hoking, which is today the area approximately up to the Catskills, down to the state of Delaware, the first third of Pennsylvania from east to west, where we are in Connecticut today, all of New Jersey, New York City, Western Long Island, is a homeland that has experienced genocide. And it's a genocide that is largely unrecognized, both by state, federal, and even local institutions. So through our grassroots effort, we have done our responsibility that we feel is required to continue a presence, to fill in this erasure that has been so pervasive through the centuries. And in acknowledging land, we must acknowledge that the people still exist. The people are not relics of the past, they are alive and part of three federally recognized communities, that of Delaware Nation, Delaware Tribe, Stockbridge, Munsee, Mohican Nation. Now these nations are in Oklahoma and Wisconsin. There are also two nations in Ontario, Canada, who are Lenape. And these communities have not had the opportunities present in the homeland. The great depth of civic, institutional, and educational opportunities that are present here in New York City, in New Jersey. So what we've been proposing through the years is something called a living land acknowledgement. That the acknowledgement is not simply a statement written on a wall. We don't need any more broken promises. We need action, and we need relationships, and we need relations. And we need support to bring the people home. Now, the occasional visit back home is great, but we want to see an investment so that the people can come home through opportunities, through education, through internships, through scholarships, and begin to heal this wound of history which has not been touched, acknowledged, recognized. This is the one area in our country that has not been given its proper recognition. So With that, I, on behalf of Lenape Center, want to welcome you to Lenape Hoking. Nolenda Muhana Eli Baeku Lenape Hoking. Gul al Sihimo and Achbiiku. We are glad because all of you came here to Lenape Hoking. Live well, live in a good way while you are here. I have a prepared statement, which is really a proposal for scholarship. Instead of reading this, I, with your permission, will forward it, and so you can take your time with it. What we're asking for today is a relationship. And with that, I say Wanishi, thank you. Joe Baker is our executive director, and my uncle.
Thank you. Good afternoon, esteemed faculty. What a pleasure it is to be with you today. I'm a proud member of the White Turkey family. My family arrived in Oklahoma from the last Federal Reserve in the 1850s, settling in the area of Bartlesville, which is where our tribal nation is located, tribal headquarters are there. I currently serve as executive director for the Mashantucket Pequot Museum right here in Connecticut. So at last, after many, many, many years, I'm much closer to the homeland. I am also a first-generation college graduate. And growing up in that small town in Oklahoma, the idea of leaving home for the university was terrifying. It was the most traumatic experience of my young life. And it was not until I found faculty at another Oklahoma institution, the University of Tulsa, that were Native, that I felt a kinship, a relationship, people who were like me, that I could identify with and benefit from their knowledge. It's been my mission in life to seek justice, to make right this horrific history that is so quiet in this country. Every day at the Mashantucket Pequot Museum, we have little children. Like today, I left we had a total of 520 students in the exhibits doing tours. And for the most part, that's their first exposure to a history that has defined this country. It's totally missing from the public school curriculum, except for that little bit of introductory knowledge in the 4th grade. For the most part, certainly my experience in higher education, it was also absent from any discussion. Things are changing today. This is a tremendous opportunity for the university, for colleges, for all educational institutions to really tune in to what is top of mind for our young students today, and that is identity and place. Our students today are asking for an explanation, an understanding of this complex history. So, as stewards, responsible stewards of the education of the young people of this country, we think that you have a great opportunity to be among the first, certainly in this state, Connecticut, to embrace a complex Lenape history. So think about those things. I think I had 10 minutes. Are we there?
Well, you have time to take questions.
Questions, okay, we can take questions. Come on back up. Any questions?
Great, it's solved.
So quiet.
Yes.
Have you had any of our students, have they come from your tribe before? that have come through our doors? Because I know we've had Native American Indians, we just don't know who they're affiliated with.
I don't believe that you have had Lenape students at this university. Keep in mind that the three federally recognized Lenape nations are at great distance. 2 in Oklahoma, 1 in Bartlesville, my tribe, the other in Anadarko, Oklahoma, and then the Stockbridge-Muncie group in Wisconsin. So they're at great distance from the homeland.
Other questions?
What are you hoping that the acknowledgement statement will do for the people in the audiences? Like, what are you hoping to gain from that experience?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm still mic'd up.
You might.
I'll use this one. So land acknowledgement, what we hope is for people to begin to actually see that there is original land, an original nation, people who have been largely eradicated, removed, and through that, inspire action based on simple ideas of justice and humanity.
We receive, on an average, at Lenape Center, 3 requests per week for land acknowledgements. It's really sort of the in thing in this country. It's new. It's in. And generally, what happens? They send a paragraph, and it's a few words, and they would ask us to edit that paragraph and put in a few words, our words. And then that's put on the wall, and everyone's finished. And so we were, in the beginning, we were like, this is really a problem. How is this affecting? In other words, to answer your question, how is this helping? Or is this really sort of absolving everyone of any responsibility and we're done? So that's when we introduced the idea of doing workshops for living land acknowledgements, where, as Hadrien said, we can build a relationship that is more ongoing and more reciprocal and really more fair, where, we both have to do the hard work of recognizing our history.
I think you hit it on the head when you said that it should be part of the school curriculum. What outreach do you do, besides what you just described, into elementary school curriculum?
We do a lot of school programs. So what we see is actually a lot of teachers who take it upon themselves to enhance their classroom by having actual representatives talk about the history and the culture, and that's because of this erasure and deficit that's present in the school system. I think there's something to be said about having a case-by-case, relationship-based approach so that it's not a blanket, uniform way of looking at land acknowledgement. Because part of that is that in terms of living land acknowledgements, there are perhaps resources and assets and means of equity that may not be across the board. There are schools in Harlem that hardly have, and in the Bronx, hardly have a budget for lunch. There are schools that are private that can afford to have speakers. And so our approach is just to be a resource to every possible institution, to fill in that void. And we are a small grassroots organization, and so it's really up to the institutions to define for themselves what they can do. And once they define what they can do, we can be there to guide. But that's some hard, difficult conversations in terms of, what can you offer to begin to heal this long-standing erasure and genocide? Is it scholarships? I mean, we love that idea. Currently, the Lenape population, we're looking at about 10% graduation rate for college. So how can we improve that together?
Yes.
I just have another question to ask you.
Excuse
in
me,
terms of how-
Karen, could you raise your voice a little bit? Air handling system up here is pretty
I'm
loud.
sorry. You had mentioned that you're located in Oklahoma and you went to an Oklahoman college to be educated, and that was a big transition for you. You're looking at now schools in the Northeast, which is going to be a real culture shock also. The Northeast is not like the Midwest. And so what's the likelihood of your students wanting to come this far? Or are there other things that we could be doing that would be more productive? I mean, those scholarships aren't good if your students are willing to come this far. But what if they're not? Is there anything else that you're asking?
Well, we see ourselves, Lenape Center, standing in to play a role in helping those students experience the richness of the urban centers here in the Northeast. That to me seems a real opportunity for Lenape students to really taste the richness, again, there's no other better word, the richness of this great city of New York, which is not that far from you. Or Danbury, that's right. I first came here, first visited New York City in 1978 in an off-Broadway production. I was a dancer for the Phoenix Dance Theater, the Cavicula Theater, and it totally changed my life. So I want to see that happen for other Lenape people.
So you would be a support center for
Yes,
them?
yes.
We have time for one more question?
Regarding the idea of a verbal land acknowledgement, which is something that you see in other countries before events, what is your opinion of something like that? Is that something that you think is a useful thing for an institution like us to adopt, say, before a graduation ceremony, to mention about the Lenape and other tribes that were in this land?
I would offer that it's not only useful, but you're going to be pressured by the student body to do so. It's just a matter of time. It's happening nationwide. Students want that acknowledgement. And so in being prepared to meet that student demand, what we see is an opportunity for the actions to precede the words, so that by the time the words are given, our action has already been taken. And that's a much more powerful place that is aligned with indigenous knowing of relations. So I would recommend that the words of a land acknowledgement be a statement that speaks to a commitment and to relations. That will have much more value.
Okay, thank you very much. One thing before you leave, I'd like to say that I think I can speak for the Senate and the university. I have a lot of words.
Okay.
Speak for the Senate and the university, saying this has begun a conversation. And I look forward to the conversation continuing.